Now let's get into some real talk. It's time for story time, everyone. Why don't we just dive right on in? Hey guys, welcome to my channel. So for this video, what I thought I would do is I would have a guest here, Deanna. Hi, Deanna.
Hi, Patrick.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. For those that don't know, Deanna has been in quite a few of my videos. She's been in the hot sauce taste testing. She's been in a lot of the co-op games that I've played on the channel, such as Outlast, where she was just commenting while I was playing. And that's actually something that she'll have done in a video that came out not too long ago. She'll be the one behind the wheel this time, and I get to just make silly comments. Yeah. So that'll be fun. Yeah. But you might be wondering what we're doing today. What we'll be doing is we'll be ranking horror movie final girls and final boys. So for those that might not know what a final girl or a final boy is, Deanna, did you know what a final boy or final girl was?
Yes, but I don't think to the degree that you do, because you're more of an aficionado of these films than me.
Fair enough, but for layman's terms, how would you describe one?
So the final character, it typically, like the trope, I think, was more the girl, actually, in kind of old horror movies. So it's kind of that last girl or boy who survives the film, as opposed to a lot of the other people in the film who do not. And it's horror slasher kind of genres. May or may not be correct.
You're absolutely right. So basically what a final girl / boy is like Deanna said, is typically the final character that survives at the end. And that trope kind of started in the late 70s, early 80s when Halloween and Friday the 13th came out. And they actually weren't intentionally trying to do that. It just so happened to be picked up that way. And the further and further it went, the trope became even more obvious. It was usually the virginal character, the innocent one. Like for Halloween, for example, Laurie Strode, she's the good one compared to her bad friends and whatever. So that's typically what ended up happening. And a typical slasher film with a final girl or boy, they have to do what's considered the final circuit, yes, which is they are getting chased around by the killer, but while that's happening, they're coming across all of the previous victims, or a majority of them, in complete shocking chaos, and then they have a final confrontation. The killer and the final character, typically the final character wins with either killing the killer or whatever, he gets away, incapacitating him, whatever. Or sometimes the final character does end up dying, but they're still considered the final character. So I thought we would just get right into it. And the first one, now I might be missing some, and I apologize if I'm missing some final characters. I went through a couple of research documents, and these were the ones that the general public tended to find were deemed final characters.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to start with the first one, which is Lila Crane from the original Alfred Hitchcock Psycho. And not to be confused, she is not Marion Crane, who was stabbed in the shower. She is actually Marion Crane's sister. So, Deanna, what are your thoughts and opinions on Lila Crane? Now, before you start, I should mention, we're going to be ranking these characters based off of their personality, the terror that the film brought, and the impact that this character or film had on society as a whole, and if there was specific movements that might have happened because of these films. So we'll start with Lila Crane, once again, Psycho. Yes. Deanna, take it away.
Okay, so I apologize. I took notes like a big nerd,
Perfect.
So I'll be kind of referring to those. So what I did is I went through all of the films and I ranked them, as Patrick said, on the terror, the personality, and the impact on the genre or society kind of as a whole. And then I went back. We have quite a few. So we had to go back and rank them. We have 19 total. So I personally, for the terror of the film, I don't think it holds up today, perhaps, as being as scary as it probably was in the 60s or 1960, I believe, when it was released. And it was so iconic at the time and so different at the time, but I don't think that now it does hold up to that, unfortunately. So I don't find it that scary. I understand the suspense and whatnot, but I would argue that it's not that scary as a film. For Lila and her personality, Patrick sort of alluded to it already, is that you don't really think of her. You think of the shower scene. That is not Lila. That is her sister. And that's the scene you think of. But of course, she's not the final girl because she does die. So, Marion, that is not Lila. And then, however, I will argue that the impact on the genre and society would be significant. And I think that that's where they get most of their points for me. Because at the time, and even now, everybody knows that film. Everybody knows that scene. Everybody knows Norman Bates. Everybody knows this film. And it was so early on in sort of this slasher genre, if not one of the first. Movie aficionados, don't come at me here, but I think that it is a highly impactful film. So that's where I'm at. I won't tell you my ranking yet. I'll let you speak to the film and your thoughts.
Sounds good. So I 100% agree with you. I think that, yeah, the terror of the film isn't as frightening in today's standards, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but who's to say? But the character itself, not that impactful, not the biggest personality in the room, we'll say. So, like Deanna said, we don't really think about her. We think of the shower scene, which is a fantastic scene. Yeah. So, like you said, that's where I think the impact of the film has the higher points than the character itself. It's the film as a whole and just how it was made. Yeah. I mean, it's black and white. Apparently Technicolor was a thing. Absolutely. At that time. It's the late 50s, early 60s, but Alfred Hitchcock intentionally chose to make it black and white for particular reasons. Mm-hmm. Our next character is Sally Hardesty from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, I'll start with that one. So I had never seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre growing up. I just saw it, I think, like 2 years ago for the first time ever. And I always thought it was like the super gory, horrifying film. That's just how it's that's like the urban legend of it, right? Is that it's so terrible. And honestly, it's not as terrible as you might think. It's not great. Like, it's still disturbing. Yeah. But you think there's going to be a lot more gore, I think, than there is, at least in the original. Mm-hmm. So Sally Hardesty as a character, though, I mean, her personality is kind of nothing in the film. She's just there, group of friends, going to, I guess, was it her parents' old house, or it was like a family member's old house, something we'll say. Like something like that. See, that's how impactful the character is in their background in the story. And it's just kind of like her and her friends fall upon the Sawyer family and Leatherface. So personality-wise, meh. Terror-wise, I would say it's still a terrifying film. It wasn't scary when I watched it, but it sits with you because it's not pleasant. And I would say, as for the impact of the film, very impactful. Maybe not as impactful as Psycho on the genre, but still impactful in the sense of that everyone knows the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Might not know what happens, but everyone knows about the film. Well, our next film and character is Jess Bradford from Black Christmas. Now, I'll just kind of explain what the film is about. Psycho and Texas Chainsaw, people tend to automatically know what those films are. Black Christmas was a Canadian film in the 70s. although some of the actors are not Canadian. But basically, the premise of that film is a sorority house where a killer is up in the attic and kind of like picks off the sorority girls one by one. And
spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. And seems to have some mental health problems. But I'll let you start for this one.
Sure. It's scary. This film is scary. I have only seen the 74. I haven't seen the 2006, I want to say.
Don't watch any of the remakes.
Okay.
Please don't watch any of the remakes. You're going to be very upset and disappointed.
Okay, well, I haven't seen it. But the 74 film is really scary. There are the calls he makes are upsetting. The whole premise is upsetting. Everything about this film is upsetting. Like all through it. It's scary. And because you know he's in the house, it is just adding that extra element. The calls coming from inside the house. That is this film. It's just unsettling. Her personality, excuse me, very strong personality. She manages to survive through the end. Lots of spoilers here, I apologize, but like she kills a man and like she thinks that is the murderer, is not, but it's just a whole scene. She is a strong character, and I think they deliberately made the sorority girls smart, or some of them anyway. They actually gave them character as opposed to just being sort of, dumb sorority girls, which I really appreciated, especially for the era. And impact on genre, I would argue very impactful because of the way that, the calls are coming from inside the house, the first person shooting of the film and the killer, and just some of those scenes are incredibly iconic. And they had some really hot, heavy topics in the film. Like, they do go into a lot of heavy topics in the film, which I think is incredibly important. So, all overall, quite high.
I have nothing but to agree with Deanna here. Like you said, character, very well developed. Like you said, all of the characters are kind of fleshed out. You feel for these people, actually. They're not just like meat bags that are just there to okay, let's up the kills or whatever. It's actually, you care about these characters, even if you don't like some of the characters. You don't want them to die. Also, terror of the film, terrifying. When I first watched it, I think I was 17, horrified.
I think I watched it around the same time.
Yeah, 18. Yeah, it was so scary. Yeah. And like you said, the original first-person view of from the first person's view of from the killer's perspective, is heavily played in this film. It's not the first film to have that happen. Peeping Tom from 1930 actually is. But I believe this is one of the second films to do it. A lot of people commonly mistake Halloween for being the first one, but it's not. Black Christmas did it before them.
Yeah, about 5 years.
Yeah. And as for the impact of the film, I agree. It's quite high. Maybe I'm biased. I'm truly proud to consider it a Canadian film.
Yep.
And deals with a lot of heavy subject matter. It deals with drinking. It deals with, spoiler, abortion. Yep. And just heavy things for that time. The 70s. You would not expect a film to talk about these subjects, especially back then. So up next, speaking of Halloween, we have Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis. An iconic character. I'll start about this one. So Halloween, most people know about that one. It's just the masked killer, Michael Myers, terrorizing babysitters. Typically, that was the first film. For the most part, Jamie Lee Curtis is the final girl in this film, and she has quite an impact, I would say, her character on the genre as a whole. Like I said, many people consider her being one of the launching points of final girl descriptions and definitions. I believe this was her first starring role. This is what launched her career. And as for the film itself, it's scary. It's not as scary now when you watch it. for a 70s movie, but it's still pretty scary. And the whole concept itself is pretty terrifying.
I agree.
And as for the impact of the film, super impactful.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think it's just something that people think of all the time is Halloween. But what about you?
Well, for Lori, I don't have a whole lot to add. I think we're on the same page for all of that. I do think it's scary. I think it holds up. Again, I've watched it fairly recently, along with all of the sequels and whatnot. The one thing I'll say, moving on from terror, because I think that that's a given for this film, actually, is her personality. I think, she's kind of that OG horror woman, girl, you can say, and everybody thinks of her. I do think, though, I would argue that her personality grows through the series, and you start with her here and you know what she's about here, but like I don't think that her personality is fully developed. She's a kid, like she's whatever. I don't know how. I think she's only 19 in real life, but she's a high school student in the film. But for that high school student personality in that film, it's still quite strong. But I think for the purposes of this ranking in this film, just thinking about that film, I don't think it's the strongest her personality gets. It grows through the whole series and as she ages. So that's the only thing for me where she might have lost a little bit of points for personality. And then impact on the genre is quite massive, and society was pretty massive. Everybody knows. Everybody knows these films. Everybody knows Michael Myers. Everybody does. So like it's just iconic. The film is iconic. The series is iconic, and it started with this film.
Moving on to the next character, we have Ellen Ripley from Alien. Now, a lot of people forget that the first Alien is actually considered a horror film. Mm-hmm. It's a horror sci-fi film.
Very much.
I still haven't. I've seen like the film, but I've never actually sat down and seen the entirety of the film. But I know it quite well. I mean, who doesn't? Mm-hmm. But I'll let you start with Alien.
Sure. I have seen the film. I've seen not all of the sequels, but I've seen a number of the sequels, and I quite like the sci-fi element of the sequels, and I like the first film for what it is as well. Again, keeping in mind that this came out either the same year or around the same year as Halloween, so just, I think it's important to sort of think of the time frame these films came out for sure. I think that the terror of the film, I think it's high. I think there's a high terror. It's not realistic. Like, I can't imagine myself in this situation, but you do still feel for the characters because they do develop them quite well for the film. And just iconic horror scenes. Like, everybody knows the horror scene with the alien coming out of the chest. We all know that. I mean, even if you're not a film buff, you know that scene. It's impossible not to. You'd have to be living under a rock. So that, and it's scary. It's genuinely scary. It's unexpected. It's a weird jump scare that I don't think you'd ever expect. At the time, especially not. Ellen is a badass. Like, she is such a badass. Her character is awesome. I love her personality through the film. She's a leader. It's established. She knows what she's doing. She's not scared to get stuff done. And just overall a badass. An impact on genre and society, high. I think arguably she launched sort of this era of strong female leads. I think Ellen Ripley, like, everybody kind of associates her with being a strong female character, and I think that that's part of what the film does. In terms of impact on society, but also I think it's the film itself, taking Ellen out of the equation, I think it sort of started this whole sci-fi horror mix genre, which is different from those slasher genres that a lot of these films we're going to talk about are.
I have nothing much more to add about the film or the character. I absolutely agree with you. I think Ellen is a badass as well, and was a big, strong female character, especially at that time. And the film is terrifying. The chest bursting scene, everyone knows that. You don't even need to have seen the film to know. And it's also been parodied how many times?
A million times.
A million times. But right? But overall, great character, great film. I'll definitely have to watch it at some point. Yes, I will. All right. So up next, we have Alice Hardy from the first Friday the 13th. So a lot of people know Friday the 13th. Arguably, some people say that Jason Voorhees is more recognizable than Michael Myers, not the actor Mike Myers.
But maybe him too. It's hard to say.
Maybe him, I don't know.
As a Canadian, I would argue no. Everybody knows Mike Myers.
I would agree.
But
you never know.
You never know.
But that Jason Voorhees is more recognizable than Michael Myers due to the hockey mask.
Interesting.
It's very interesting. Now, for the first film, I mean, it's old now, so spoilers be warned.
Oh, yeah.
Jason,
spoilers for all of these films,
honestly,
by the way. Just maybe do that at the front of the
yes. Jason Voorhees isn't even in the first one. He's not there at all. The premise is this unknown killer. It's kind of like a whodunit.
Actually, he is in it, is he not?
He is in it, but...
Oh, is he though? Let's get to it. Let's get there.
So, the premise is it's kind of a whodunit. We don't know who's killing these camp counselors before they're opening up camp for the summer. But allegedly, tale goes that years ago, this little boy named Jason drowned in the lake and no camp counselors rescued him.
I don't think you know his name is Jason for most of the film.
You don't.
I could be wrong.
You don't.
Yeah, okay.
Until, camp counselors didn't rescue him because they were too busy getting it on.
That's right. Because sex is bad.
Because sex is bad.
In all of these films. Yeah. Except for one, which we'll get to.
Yes. Oh, yes. I forgot
Spoiler
about
alert.
That. Yes. Anyways. So the character, though, Alice Hardy, the final girl in this film, she's kind of a bit of a nobody to me. She's okay. I think out of all of the women, she's probably the most likable one.
You don't get to know them. Any of them. That's the problem.
They're not fleshed out.
Not even a little bit. That's the problem.
I always forget that Kevin Bacon is in this film.
Kevin Bacon forgets that Kevin Bacon was in this film, I think, because nobody remembers any of these camp counselors.
I don't think Kevin Bacon wants to be known about being Kevin Bacon in this film.
But genuinely, you're like, oh yeah, that happened.
Yeah. So the character, meh. The film, very impactful. We all know Friday the 13th. We all know Jason Voorhees. Even if he's not in the first one, technically, it just goes with it all.
Yes.
And terror for the film, not scary. I wasn't scared by it.
Oh, interesting.
I find Halloween scarier than Friday the 13th. Maybe it's because it's at a home instead of at a campsite. That could be it. Maybe it's also because the characters in Friday the 13th are a bit dumber to a certain extent for some of the actions that they do, which fulfills that typical trope of the character, oh, what's that sound? Let me go investigate alone and not say anything. But that's kind of where I sit with Alice. What about you?
I don't have anything to add about the personality. I have overall just a meh personality. There's really nothing to her, honestly, or anybody else in the film. And I think that's the biggest problem with the film, to be totally honest with you. I do find it scary though. I think that I don't know. I never really thought about it directly in comparison to Halloween, although at the time it would have been exactly what happened because they were all, I mean, you look at these two franchises, right? And they're just sort of in tandem and whatnot. So yeah, fair enough. I think there is some level of equal scariness for me. And I think the fact that they are out in sort of this remote camp area is very scary to me, to be totally honest with you. So I do find it scary. And then impact on genre. The franchise does, but I almost feel like this film isn't that, though. Because everybody thinks of the hockey mask. Everybody thinks of that character, right? But that's not at all what happens in the first or second film. Spoiler, we're going to get to that one. But it's, the series is impactful. This film, as a result, I think of the sequels as impactful, but not this film exactly itself. So it's it's kind of an overall whatever, but yeah, I think other Jason films and characters are more impactful and better, but in this case, I have to give props to it to starting the whole franchise, though. I will give it that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Sticking to the Friday franchise, we're going to move on to Friday the 13th 2. So the first one, as we discussed, Jason wasn't even really involved in any of it. It was just the drowned boy. And it was actually Pamela Voorhees, his mother, that was enacting revenge on behalf of her lost child. She dies at the end of that film. So
yeah, she does.
She dies. In the second film, though, now it's a magical Jason Voorhees who ended up not drowning as a kid and has been an adult this whole time, lurking in the woods and witnesses the death of his mother. So now he's going to get revenge or...
Yeah, I just want to point this out. So at the end of the first film, Jason jumps out of the water in that terrifying scare.
The jump scare. Okay.
But that has to be, it's a dream sequence.
Well, yeah, because they find her in the boat.
Because he's not a boy, and this doesn't, like, what's the time frame between these films?
It's actually not that far.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So he doesn't go from being a boy to an adult all of a sudden. So
very true.
There's they did not plan for sequels, period. That's it. So now there's some nonsense happening, and that's fine. I don't care. I don't sit here thinking that I'm A, going to write anything better, or B, that I expect my horror films to have some crazy realistic element to them. I don't want them to be real because they're scary. So let's not go into that. But I have some questions about how things transpired from 1 through all of them, quite honestly. But anyway, yeah, I just want to point that out.
Fair enough. And yeah, I mean, the Friday the 13th are very notorious for their final jump scare, even if it has nothing to do with anything. And it's always a dream or something. It's
the first 3 were dreams.
I think, yeah, the first 3 are dreams. But our final girl changes compared to like Halloween 2, because actually Halloween was actually pre-planned to have a second film because they were contractually obliged to make both films.
Yeah.
Where the Friday the 13th, yeah, it just took off and they're like, oh, great, what do we do now?
We like money. Let's go ahead and make more.
Exactly. So our final girl from the first film, unfortunately, dies at the beginning of the second film.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
In like the dumbest way, because she's just dreaming of like the entire first film.
That's right. They need to do a recap. And I think these films all came out very, like, they straight, listen, I don't even judge because live your life, make your money, go for it. But like, they came out very quickly. Nobody had forgotten what happened at the end of Halloween 1 when Halloween 2 came out.
Friday the 13th.
Oh, sorry, Friday the 13th. Yeah, I know what we're talking about. Yeah, nobody forgot what happened at the end of Friday 1 when Friday 2 came out. Same thing with Friday 3, Friday 4, but they still felt the need to do all these weird recaps. The whole thing is just wild. Clearly money making. Live your life. I don't care. Make your money. People love them. People still love them. Yeah. So I don't judge, but it is kind of funny when you look at it objectively. And personally, as somebody who, I like horror films, absolutely fine. I enjoy a good horror film. I have my likes and my dislikes about certain things, but at the time, these films were huge. People loved them. People ate them up. People still love them. So take my critique with a grain of salt. But you have to objectively question some of the things in this particular series, especially.
Yeah.
I think.
I would agree. And without further ado, our final girl in the second film is actually Ginny Field. Now, I'll let you take the lead with Ginny on this one.
So her personality, you do like her, actually. You care about her, you like her, you want her to survive. Not that I find that I want people not to survive typically, but you do actually get to know her. She's a little bit more of a developed character compared especially to the first one, and even other films we're going to talk about it. You know, she seems smart, she has her wits about her. You kind of feel like, okay, she'll be able to figure some stuff out. So you definitely see her as a fully developed character who will probably be able to survive, I would say. I think these films are genuinely scary, like for the most part. Like, it gets a little tired because you're expecting jump scares, but they do get me all the time, so fair enough. And I don't think there's anything. I think there were some sort of unique moments of 2 compared to 1 and compared to future films as well. I think they did some things that were a little more unique and a little more scary, so props to them for that. And I mean, the sequel in terms of impact on genre and society. It's a sequel. It was so fast after the first one, but Jason was born in this particular one. Not iconic with his mask, but he was born in this one. So I think when you look at that particular piece, I think you have to again give it props for the creation of Jason as the beginning of what we're going to get to know him as throughout the rest of the 57 films that are Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
So, not bad overall, actually, in terms of the whole Friday 2, despite all of my preamble of the whole series.
Yes. And honestly, I have nothing much to add. Deanna hit the head on the nail right there.
Nail on the head.
Nail on the head. Thank you. Terms, idioms. They're great. Anyways, like Deanna said, though, not hockey mask Jason. No. This is potato bag head Jason.
It's so bad.
He literally just has a potato bag over his head with one little hole.
For just one eye.
For one eye.
Yeah, because he didn't have the scissors to do two.
Apparently. Or maybe, fortunately, it just magically had one
right
on his eye.
On his one eye.
Whatever. But yeah. Impactful film. Not as impactful, I think. Well, impactful. Didn't launch the franchise.
That's it. It's hard when there's so many of one to say, oh, what's the impact? Because it's hard to piece out the pieces from what you know in the future. Like with Halloween and Laurie, it's hard.
Yeah.
But they're different characters all the time, except for Jason, actually. But
it's true. But yeah, nothing much to add about Ginny Field. Continuing the Friday franchise, because we have 2 more to talk about. We're going to go to Friday 3. Chris Higgins from Higgins Haven. So, this film, this is where we get iconic hockey mask Jason. This film is kind of different. I believe this is like the first time they aren't filming it on the East Coast.
Oh yeah, it's in California.
It's in California. Yeah. So it's brighter and not as like foresty and woodsy feeling, I found.
Yeah, well, because apparently with the 3D, again, we did watch some stuff about the films before we did this video, and with the 3D filming, that was new technology at the time, it needed the light.
That's right.
So
yes.
Yeah.
So as Deanna said, part 3, 3D. And that's OG 3D, the whoa!
The blue and red glasses.
Yes. Woo! Yeah. Anyways, Chris Higgins, though. I didn't like her. I'll just be straight up. Everybody. Hot take. I didn't like her character. She was annoying. She was a bit whiny. She was just this distraught character that is coming back to her family's cabin, because apparently Crystal Lake has a bunch of campgrounds and cabins, various points that Jason magically gets to it. Yeah, the swamp. But basically, I don't like her. She's there, and she's been traumatized from the past because I guess she came across Jason the year before while she was distraught and in the woods. But not a fan of her. The film itself, the characters, not likable. In my opinion, I'm going to be very critical about this one for some reason. Not likable characters, not fun. Like, some are fun. I will say, though, this does have the best dead body reaction scene, which I will insert right here.
What's going on? Get up! Shelley, enough is enough!
Oh my god!
Oh yeah.
Just going everywhere until the fire poker. So that was the that was the best scene of the film, in my opinion.
Agreed.
And the way Jason gets his hockey mask is from the most annoying character in the film.
Yeah.
That's how he gets
Not
the hockey
Chris,
mask.
but-
Not Chris. Sorry, not Chris. There's even someone worse than Chris.
Yeah, he's bad.
Yeah, he's really bad. Shelley
That's
is
right,
his name.
Shelley.
Not good. Impact of the movie. It's impactful. Gave the hockey mask, I guess. So we'll give it credit there. But I also found it, out of the first three, the least scary.
Absolutely.
What about you, though?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's scary, but not really. Like, it's scary because of the scenes that are, murders. But that's it. Like, it's nothing. There's nothing about it. And, like, in terms of the personality of the character, I have nothing bad and nothing different. She's just a derivative character. Like, until you said all these things, I actually completely forgot about it. I was like, oh my god, I don't know what I'm going to say. And that's not good. That means I don't remember a single thing about her. And I can think of all the other characters we're going to talk about, and I can think about them. I can't even picture her in my head. I have no idea what she looks like. That's bad.
If I'm completely honest, I actually was going to skip her.
Oh, that's
I was
that's
gonna
right.
skip
This
her.
was the last minute edition.
Yeah, this was the last minute edition. I
That's
was going to
right.
skip her because I'm like, she's nothing. But I kept her because that's where we get the hockey mask, and it's an impactful film in that sense.
Yes,
Carry
exactly. And we were doing 1, 2, 3, and 4, so it kind of didn't make sense to skip 3. And in terms of impact, I just say that it's impactful because the hockey mask, Jason is born. It's iconic for that, but that's it. It's not because of the film. It's just because of that one piece that now we know carries through the rest of it. But again, at the time, you wouldn't have known that, really. So it's not good. This film is not good. I'm sorry, it's not good. She's not good. The whole thing's not good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Last Friday the 13th film, people, I promise.
Yes.
Then we'll move on to other films. This is Friday the 13th. Number 4, the final chapter. This was when they were actually going to put the series to rest, but
They did not.
money talks. But I believe this was the last one by the same director
Writer?
or the writer, screenplay. I don't know. Don't quote me.
I think writers maybe.
Writers, sure. Anyways, but the final boy is Tommy Jarvis, Corey Feldman
Yes.
in this film. And I'll let you talk about Corey Feldman and Tommy Jarvis.
And the film, yeah. So, it's interesting, like, he himself, Tommy Jarvis, it's iconic for that reason, but I don't think and he has a pretty distinct personality in the film, actually. You do get to know him, but he's also a kid. He's also not overly present, I would argue, through the film. Like, he's not an adult, he's not a teenager, he's just kind of the kid brother. And then he almost gets kind of brought in almost toward the end, it feels like, a little bit, to be the final boy, which is fine. Like, the whole scene, it does sort of play into what he's good at. Like, he's smart, he's, crafty, all this kind of stuff. So, yeah, personality-wise, what you know about him, you do like him. He's a likable character. I mean, Corey Feldman, probably one of his first acting, if not his first acting gig, is in a main character role kind of thing, or secondary character, I guess. This was scary. I would say scarier than 3, far and away. I don't know. Comparing against the other two, I'm not 100% sure, but definitely scary. Definitely had some good gore, good kills, good effects. Like, there were some good things in there that you watch and you're like, oh, that's really good. Like, you enjoy it as sort of somebody who enjoys these types of horror films, for sure. And impact, I mean, it's impactful because Jason dies. He's killed. Tommy Jarvis is born. Like, that whole, like, I don't even know what you'd call it, like
that
storyline,
or like, yeah,
I don't even
that
know what
character.
you'd call it, but yeah, like, so that's pretty iconic. So that's what I would say. I mean, we just kind of gave a really not great review to 3, but I would argue that 4 goes back to more of its roots in some ways and kind of gets away from the shtick of 3D and kind of the nonsense, and it does bring you more likable characters. So yeah, I would say it's got some impact for sure for several reasons, and pretty good overall.
Yeah, I would actually agree. I have not much to add. 4 is definitely way better than 3 in my opinion. I prefer the first 2 over 4, but Tommy Jarvis as a character, he's fine. I think this is the first time they actually have an actual kid
I think
in
so.
the entire franchise at the beginning, because although it's a camp, there are no kids.
Excellent point. I never thought about it. They're camp counselors, but there are never any children.
No
to
children.
Counsel.
No children to counsel.
That's so funny.
Yet, at least, there actually are kids in the future
Yeah.
ones. Don't worry, they don't die. Because you don't kill kids in films.
Not
Horror
in North
films.
America, anyway.
Not at the beginning.
And not in North America.
No,
Like, it seems to be more of a North American thing.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, Tommy Jarvis, good character. Not a lot to add, in my opinion, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm so interested to see where we're going to rank these. Like,
I am too. All right, so up next, we have Nightmare on Elm Street's Nancy Thompson.
Mhm.
So, Nightmare on Elm Street, one of the main three baddies, we'll say, Freddy Krueger.
Yes.
Also quite iconic and memorable, for sure. I saw the original, I also want to say 3 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and watching it now, it's not scary. It's actually quite comical, parts of it. Freddy Krueger is a bit of a comedic character,
Yeah.
but overall, it was a good film. It's impactful. I mean, we all know Freddy Krueger, just like Jason, just like Michael Myers. I almost said Mike Myers again. As for Nancy Thompson, meh, she's okay. Her character's fine. Not hating on the actor, hating on the character. Because I think Heather Langenkamp is actually great as an actor. But with the script given, the character could have been a bit more fleshed out.
Mhm.
The storyline could have been fleshed out a bit better too, in my opinion. But I always forget with this one about Johnny Depp being in it.
Oh.
Just like Kevin Bacon, this is Johnny Depp's intro
Yeah.
into horror.
Oh, gosh.
And for me, the character is not that impactful. Doesn't stand out really as much. Neither does the terror in the film. The film itself, though, is kind of impactful. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the premise is scary, like things happening in your dreams that happen in real life, but you're right, it is sort of this, it edges on the humor, trying to take away from the scariness, I think. I don't know if it has to do with trying to get certain, like, ratings or whatever, I'm not sure. But yeah, overall, it comes off a little hokey, like it's a little bit, I don't know, terror-wise. She, like, I have here that she's kind of a bit of a trope. Like, she kind of feels like she's trying to be Laurie Strode, but doesn't quite get there. And I have that in my notes as well. It's like, I don't know. It's kind of, I don't know. She's not, yeah, exactly. Nothing against, none of these are anything against any of the actors.
No,
The
of
scripts
course
are
not.
what they are, of course. I mean, yeah, but in terms of the impact on genre, society, high, I would say, because to your point, everybody knows Freddy Krueger. Everybody knows, even more importantly, I think the premise of sort of what Freddy does and how he acts and sort of the behavior and in your dreams and all this kind of thing. So I think, again, yeah, everybody can picture Freddy Krueger and what he looks like and his sweater and his face. And
The razor,
yeah, of course,
gloves.
his finger scissors or gloves or whatever. Or not finger gloves. His,
The finger
knife
knives?
gloves
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah, like everybody can picture him. So I think impact is high, but the other two categories are not quite as high for this particular film.
Yeah, I would agree. Up next, we have Kirsty Colton from Hellraiser. Now, I never saw Hellraiser. I was always like considering it like such a like horrible film to watch because Pinhead is awful and this is like demonic and evil. I mean, hell's in the name. But what about you?
I've never seen it, so like, but we've watched summaries and stuff of these for sure. I think it's kind of a scary premise, but I don't necessarily know that they. I feel like we're gonna get heat for this because Hellraiser is so iconic for people, and I think people who love this series and love the films are diehards,
Yeah.
actually. So it's not for me, though. Quite honestly, it's not for me. I don't overly love having like a lot of religious like iconography, I guess, in films. It's not for me, but I'm also not a religious person, so that's fine. So maybe the impact on me, but like as a whole, I can understand how people would find it upsetting or disconcerting or those kinds of things. So I don't know. And obviously not like a realistic. It's got kind of a little bit of like a supernatural element to it to me that I don't always love in horror films in general. I more prefer like realistic settings and psychological thrillers. For me, that's my own preference. You know, I mean, her personality is fine of Kirsty. She's nothing special. Like the whole situation is kind of messed up. Like I feel for her in what's going on, but I don't necessarily. She's not anything special. And impact, I would say, is. I'm on the fence on this one too because it's impactful because everybody remembers Pinhead and knows Pinhead. But is that enough? I don't know. I really don't know. So I found overall didn't score high in a lot of the categories for me.
Honestly, I have not a lot to contribute besides what you said. Please don't hate us, but Hellraiser, meh. The film, gross.
It's pretty gross.
It's upsetting, I guess.
Yeah. Like some of those scenes are pretty gross.
Yeah.
Where you're like, ooh, that's gross.
It's grotesque.
Yeah.
The character Pinhead himself is iconic. Is he as iconic as Jason and Freddy Krueger? Personally, for me, no. Not everyone knows who Pinhead is, but everyone really knows Jason or Freddy. Personally. So as for the character herself, yeah, she's kind of just, she's not even really in the film.
That's it.
She appears like just near the end.
Yeah.
So she doesn't have that much of like an impact in the film. So her character isn't fleshed out as much as some previous films.
I agree.
So, yeah, she's fine.
Yeah, she's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with her inherently, but yeah. It's kind of like Tommy Jarvis a little bit. Like, she's fine, he's fine. It's just, it's not, yeah. They just happen to be the final character, right, in some ways. But, yeah.
So, up next, we're going to touch on the three people at the same time. Unlike Friday the 13th, where it's always a different person, these characters have been throughout most of the films, except for one that just joined in the 5th installment, and those are the Scream final girls. So we have Sidney Prescott, Gale Weathers, and Sam Carpenter. Sam Carpenter is considered the final girl in Scream 5. Mm-hmm. So I'll start with the original. So Scream, iconic film, horrifying. It's jokey. Like, it has jokey moments like Nightmare on Elm Street, but the character of the villain is scary. Yeah. And the premise is still horrifying. And it's also a bit of a mystery. You don't know who the killer is.
Yeah, it's a whodunit.
Yeah, it's a whodunit for sure, where Nightmare on Elm Street, it's this being from the beyond, we'll say. So definitely an impactful film. The first one for sure. The character of Sydney, great character development, fleshed out character. You feel for her. She has this lengthy backstory, and it continues on through the series. And Neve Campbell does a fantastic job portraying her. And she's kind of a badass too. Yeah. She's not the kind of character that will just run and flee and oh my gosh, whatever. She'll actually like fight if she has to. So props to Sidney Prescott for that. As for Gale Weathers, I mean, Sidney is clearly the final girl, but Gale, in her own way, in later films, she becomes kind of a bit of a final girl herself. Still, the film's impactful. Gale Weathers' character's impact on the film, not as much. Great acting. Courtney Cox does a phenomenal job. And character is not likable, though. But it's made to be unlikable. You like her, but you don't like her. So, negative points for that, I would say, probably. And as for Scream 5, Sam Carpenter, that's where they kind of do like it's, is it like the requel, we'll say?
Yeah, they call it a requel.
The requel.
It's kind of what do they call it?
It's like bringing back the original
oh my gosh, yeah.
Because they just have the timeline, apparently not in the Scream one, but like from the beginning and whatever. It's a whole thing's tie-in.
Worth watching.
Yeah. Scream has always been touching on the horror genre as a whole and what films tend to do.
Yeah.
And it does it itself. Yeah. So Sam Carpenter as a character, though, not as great as Sydney or Gail, in my personal opinion. Sam's fine. She does well with what she can do. You feel for her, but not as much, I find, as you did for Sydney, or even Gail for that matter. Maybe that's because those characters we've been with a bit longer, and Sam's brand new, so we need to give her a bit more of a chance. But I find some of the other characters in the film more memorable than Sam Carpenter. Like her sister, played by Jenna Ortega, is more impactful in my opinion. But that's just my personal opinion about Sam. Still great character. What about you?
Yeah, I would agree with your assessment of all of the characters. I think that the one thing I'll add about Sam is she's just got a bit of an edge about her, whereas Nev Campbell, Sidney Prescott's character, I think had a little bit more of a vulnerability about her, and that's fine. It's just their personalities, but you know their personalities, and I think that's important, and not something we got with some of the other films we've talked about already. So I agree with your assessment on all of their personalities. And Gail Weathers, her character was written to be the way it was, and I think her character grew because I think fans liked her actually, and so she sort of grew through the whole series. Whereas Sidney Prescott's character, I think, was developed initially, and you knew her backstory, you knew the story about her mom. Spoiler alert, this movie, Scream, came out in 1996, so it's not that big of a deal, but like her boyfriend and the betrayal and all of that, like, so iconic. Yeah, I mean, both of the films, all of the Scream films are scary, I think. They do a good job of blending that comedy with, more importantly, the terror, and being so meta that they know what they're doing, but it's done in a way that you don't. I don't find it tiresome, actually. I think it's kind of interesting and funny the way they kind of keep talking about horror, and they don't shy away from it. It is what they do, and then it's a murder mystery layered on top of it all, right? So they're all entertaining. I watched Scream. I mean, I kind of grew up with Scream. I was fairly young when it came out, but old enough to have watched it early enough on, and then growing with the series, and they captured sort of that era of kids, I felt, in the 90s, and I suspect now too, although I'm not as young as I was at the time. And then in terms of impact, I would say that Scream 1, the first Scream, was substantially more impactful. I mean, that's where you get Ghostface, that's where you get like the actual birth of Ghostface, and that character, that mask kind of traveling through time, and being reborn or whatever, all those times. And I think the first one was far more impactful than 5, but I think they all continue to have their impact and hold up. Yeah. So I think we're on the same page on those. Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see when the rankings.
We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know.
Up next, our next character is Maxine Minx from the film X. Now, X is one of the newer films that has come out, and takes place in the 70s when it is a bunch of young adults trying to take advantage of the era of pornography as an art form, and wanting to make their own film themselves, and they're being targeted by an old couple that they happen to rent the back home or cabin or whatever on their property in Texas. So I'll let you take the lead on Maxine.
Sure. This whole film, they actually really developed the characters really, I'll say, nicely, and with the goal of kind of, I'll say, demystifying and turning kind of that sexual aspect on its head a little bit, and really developing these characters. Unlike a lot of the other films from the 70s, this was done in 2022, but set in the 70s. Unlike the films that did come out in the 70s, where like the characters who are promiscuous are the ones that die, right? Like faster. and it's the virginal final girl that doesn't. And so this almost flips it right on its head, and I think I really like that. I think that's really cool. I think that that's it's different. It's very different, and I like that a lot about the film. And Maxine is one of, she's the final girl. Her character is just as developed, I would say, as everybody else in the film. You know what they are, you know who they stand for, you know what their dreams are, you understand their characters. And a lot of the film is spent building up the characters. It's not about the murder. And even you feel bad for everybody, including the couple, actually. Like, it's really, really well done. Her character is really well developed. She's thoughtful and considerate, and the fact that she does, like, they're doing a pornography film is secondary almost, and that's the whole point, and they manage it, and I think that's fantastic. It's scary. Like, the film, there's some really creepy things, really gory things, kind of a little bit for everybody, honestly, if you want to watch the film. And I hope that it has an impact on society, but I don't necessarily know that it did. And I think that that's unfortunate, because I think its message was very strong. I think its point of view is very strong. And I think that overall, this message is something that should be out there. But it's not something I've heard a lot of people talk about, unfortunately. So, yeah, unfortunately.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I agree with you 1000%. You feel for these characters. I felt bad for all of them. I didn't want any of them to die.
No.
I really enjoyed all of the characters. They all had a part of them that contributed to the film. And like you said, with the impact of the film, I hope it develops an impact. I think it is a bit impactful, but more in an artistic way, we'll say, compared to the others, because it's created by Ari Aster, and Ari Aster, and I believe it's A24 is the group. They're the ones that did The Witch and Midsummer and Hereditary, and all those films are also impactful in their own way. They're all like artistic films, and they all have like those weird feelings at the end, and you're having to process them. So I hope X continues to get that trajectory, kind of like those other films where they're like silent sleeper hits that then grow. Yeah,
and critically acclaimed.
Absolutely.
I think that's the other thing. Those films are all,
Absolutely.
I didn't know that was all the same sort of filmmaker, but that makes sense now that you say it, from sort of like the very strong points of view of all those other films. Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and it came out with, they actually filmed a whole trilogy with this film. So the other film that came out is Pearl, which is technically a prequel to The Old Woman. Yeah. And spoiler alert, they're going to be coming out with the third film called Maxine, which is about Maxine's character from this film. So, and what happens after that? Spoiler, she lives. But yeah.
Spoiler, this final girl circus.
Yes. Spoiler, this one lives.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay. Have you seen Pearl? Is it out?
I've seen Pearl.
Oh, okay.
I actually really enjoyed it.
I could see, Is it the same actor that...
Yeah.
Okay, of course. Oh, yeah, of course, because they were filmed... Yeah.
Yeah. And the actor that does Maxine actually does Pearl in, the movie X with, like... prosthetics and stuff. So she plays a younger Pearl who looks just like Maxine. Yeah. It's a whole thing. Watch the movie. Fantastic film. It's really good. Not as impactful personally for me as X was, but still quite scary.
Okay. Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Interesting. So it's also a horror.
It's also a horror.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. I'll have to check that one out.
Yes, you will. Up next, we've got Chris Washington from the film Get Out, Jordan Peele's first film. And I'll take that one. Chris Washington, the film itself, fantastic film. I think it's great. I think it definitely had a big impact on the genre itself and society as a whole. It deals with race, and it deals with just a whole cultural clash of things. And Chris Washington is a well-developed character. There could have been a bit more development, but great character. You feel for the guy. You don't want anything to happen to him. And the film's scary. It's scary. It's not, for me personally, it's not horrifying. I'm not like horrified. It's more just suspenseful. It's very suspenseful, weird, eerie. You're on edge a lot of the time. And I thoroughly enjoy it. I think it had a huge impact. And I think the character is a decent one. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. We're not going to have many disagreements, or as it turns out, I guess. I think it should be said that Jordan Peele's impact as a whole has been pretty iconic on, as a Black director, and the imagery that he chooses, and not just around race, but a lot of it times around race. Thinking of his other films as well, that's something that he does not shy away from. It's very deliberate, it's very impactful, and it's very timely, I think, at this point in our history. And he started with this film, and I think probably one of the more impactful ones, actually, of the three that I'm thinking of. He may have more. I don't know.
There's three so far.
There's only three. Okay. Then, yeah, okay. So, yeah, I think that the impact is high. And yeah, Chris is a great character. I think, I don't have anything really to add on that. I think he has certainly ways to, maybe that there could be ways to more develop the character, but I don't necessarily know that it was necessary to the film. In a lot of ways. So, yeah, overall great.
And I just double checked because I couldn't remember. The horror genre as a whole doesn't really get a lot of recognition. At the Academy Awards, there's only a handful of films.
This one won.
And this one won. It actually won. It was actually won nominations for director, actor, picture, but it won original screenplay.
Oh, screenplay. Okay.
Yeah. So that in itself is a win for the genre as a whole.
Agree.
So up next, we have Alex Browning from the Final Destination franchise. Now, I never saw the original Final Destination. I only saw the third one. That's the one where the premonition death is on the roller coaster. This one is on a plane, so pretty dark, actually.
Pre 9/11.
Pre 9/11.
Just want to throw that out
But
there.
like
barely
yikes.
pre 9/11.
Barely.
They couldn't have. No, they didn't know.
No, but like.
Or did they?
Oh.
Just kidding, they didn't.
No, they didn't. Conspiracy
Still
theory.
cancel us.
Conspiracy theories galore here. But I'll let you get into this one since you're the Final Destination gal.
I'm a Final Destination connoisseur. I'm not at all. I have seen this film, and I saw it when I was a teenager because it came out around that, I'll say, coming of age time for me, where you had some independence and whatnot. So I would have been like probably 15 when this came out, and I remember watching it, and I remember it being scary at the time. And then you kind of look at it as an adult. It's not good. This film is not good, and I stand by that. Like, the characters, including Alex, are unlikable. They really are, and it does not hold up. And okay, so like, I will take this, put it next to Scream, for example, because they came out in and around the same time with Final Destination a few years later. So I would say the same era of teenagers, and they were high school kids, both of them. The level of development of these characters is not even anywhere close. The level of likability, the level of empathy, the level of care. You do not care, honestly, I felt. They were so tropey, they were so cookie cutter in Final Destination, and Alex is no exception to that. His personality, let me see what I wrote. Basic. The scene in the cabin is pretty stupid, and he has no common sense. That's what I wrote about him. That's not good. And again, the terror of the film is pretty hokey. It's just so unbelievable, and there are scenes that are just not good, and they don't make sense, and it's just bizarre. And I get that it's meant to sort of rectify death being cheated, but it's just like, they're just wild, some of the ways these people die, to the point of just absurdity, and it takes away from any terror that's part of that. And I will say that you remember the premise. In terms of impact, it's certainly not as impactful as a lot of these other films in any way, shape, or form, but you do remember the premise. There were tons of sequels, I feel like 5 maybe. So something to be said about that as being the beginning of the series, I suppose, but that's the best praise I'll give it.
Fair enough. I have barely anything else to add to it. Character's awful. All of it's awful. Yeah, the cheating death and death finding a way to get back at them is like, great premise, but done in a hokey way. And honestly, I think a lot of the deaths are just to be like upsetting and gory.
Or stupid. Yeah, that's the problem I have.
And I think they get gorier and gorier the further the franchise moves on.
Yeah.
And even more ridiculous.
Yeah.
So not great.
No.
Not a fan. And that's all I'm gonna say about it, because you know what?
And that's all I have to say about that. It's
not good.
It's really unfortunate.
Not good.
Yeah.
Our next character is Andy Barclay from Child's Play. So Chucky. So Child's Play, also known as Chucky later on in the franchise. Got his name in this film though.
Yeah.
But movie, super impactful. We all know Chucky. We all know Evil Doll, one of the first Evil Dolls. I mean, I believe like the Twilight Zone had done like an Evil Doll before this. But scary doll. Very vulgar too. I mean,
that juxtaposition is wild.
What?
This is a child. He's a literal child actor.
Yeah. And the doll's super vulgar, gets even more vulgar more the franchise moves on and stuff like that.
In this one too.
In this one too, absolutely. Yeah. You don't see a lot of the doll's movement in the first film at least, which I think honestly is an advantage for the terror, because you're waiting to see the doll move and it doesn't do a lot. And
I wonder if some of that is because they couldn't animate the doll in a way that was going to make it look scary and chose not to animate it. And when they did it in very impactful ways rather than making it look cheesy, because it could have turned cheesy really quickly.
Absolutely. And honestly, for the majority of the film, you know Chucky is Chucky because you just know now. But I saw it knowing who Chucky was. But if you saw it the first time without knowing anything about it, you don't know if the doll is really alive or not.
Yeah.
Because Andy might just be crazy and thinking these things.
Yeah.
Andy, the character himself, fantastic character, super adorable, fantastic child actor, does a great job. You feel for the kid. You care for that kid. You want nothing to happen to that poor kid.
Yeah.
And besides Tommy Jarvis, one of our youngest kid final girls or boys.
Yeah.
So that's my opinion on Andy.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add other than he's just so cute. He is such a cute kid. He nails it, like as an actor. Listen, I am not a huge fan of a child acting in a lot of circumstances. There are a handful that stick out to me. If you want to talk about that, we can. But he's one of them. He really is cute. He nails it. You feel for him. Nobody believes him because he's a kid and it sounds crazy. And I couldn't imagine that poor little kid knowing that something's not right and nobody believing him. And then it turns out, he's vindicated, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, at the end. Yeah, super cute, super impactful. Chucky is just, everybody knows, there's no question there. And yeah, scary. It's scary. Like, it's absolutely really creepy. Nobody likes dolls. Nobody likes being in that little uncanny valley area of dolls we all have that visceral, ooh, something's not right there. And then it turns out that feeling is correct with Chucky. It's just not nice. So crazy premise. It worked. There's a million sequels. I've seen this one. I was fairly young. I haven't seen it in a long time. Watching the replays of it, it still holds up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't seen like some of the further like Bride of Chucky. I haven't seen any of those though.
Fair enough. Yeah. I actually saw some of the more recent ones like Cult and Colton, I forget what the other one was, but the name, great.
Okay.
They had that hokey phase with like Bride and Seed, but then it gets dark again.
Oh, okay.
And it's really good,
Okay.
in my opinion. Recommend. Our final character. We've made it. Ash Williams from the Evil Dead film.
Save the best for last.
Save the best character for last. I'll let you start.
So, Ash. What's his last name?
Williams.
Ash Williams. I don't even have his last name here because I don't care. Okay. I will start with the Evil Dead premise. So scary. I actually saw the most recent Evil Dead, and it is like I don't remember what it's called. I saw it not that long ago. Recently came out. Very creepy. Kind of I'll say a reboot almost of this. I could be wrong. Don't come at me. But it's this movie and this one and this one we're talking about from the 80s. I don't remember 81. Very gory, very gross. Like, it's gross. Like, some of these, they're gross. You watch them, you're like, oh my, this is disgusting. And so, props to that, because it is scary for that. That's just not my kind of film. I prefer, again, I've said, psychological thrillers, horrors. I don't even mind slashers, like, where they're kind of like one quick gory kill, but I don't like when it's just this drawn out, like, almost torture-y type of, or just excessive. And this is excessive. So, if that's your thing, great. It's not my thing, but I can appreciate the terror of the film, particularly at the time. And it's kind of gross, though. Ash really has no personality. I'm sorry. He just... spoiler alert, he's toward the bottom of my list. I don't think that's going to be a surprise after what I say. Like, what is going on? He just makes bad decisions throughout this entire film. So he knows these people come back to life, they get reanimated, and he keeps them all in the house. Like, what are you thinking? Just get rid of them. Put them somewhere else. You know this is happening. Or
leave.
Or leave. Well, no, didn't the bridge blow up or something?
Whatever.
Like, there's some way you can leave, and that's fine. I mean, that's going to happen. But, like, the decisions you have chosen are the actual worst ones you could have chosen. So, what? You don't come off as being dumb, so you're making these dumb decisions, and yes, whatever. I'm not even going to try to justify it. Terror, whatever, I get it. But, like, you couldn't... What are you doing? Like, what are you doing in most of these circumstances? So, yeah, not a big fan. And his personality is just like jock. He's a jock. Mm-hmm. Do you know anything else about him? Yeah, exactly.
I think he gets a chainsaw hand in, like, the later films.
Okay, but in this film...
That's all?
He's a jock. Like, it's just, there's nothing to him. Mm-hmm. Now, impact on genre, I will say that the Evil Dead series is iconic. I will say people know the Evil Dead series. People know all about it, and it started here, so props to that, and it continued on. So yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, it was kind of, whatever. I'm not going to get into like the scenes in there that are kind of disturbing or whatever, and just the fact that it was like banned in the UK for a long time, and because it was that gross, though, to be totally fair, I think there's something to be said that it is pretty gross. So overall, not a huge fan of the series, that's my opinion, but as in Ash as a character in this one, no, hard pass.
I'd have to agree with you. I mean, the impact of the film, great. I mean, Sam Raimi as the director and stuff like that, fantastic. It's very B-movie, like the way it's filmed and stuff, because I think it really was like
I think it might have been
a very cheap budget B stuff like that, and scary. It's scary. It's gross. It's scary. It's dark. But yeah, Ash,
it's over the top.
It's a bit over the top where it gets a little hokey. Yeah. I think the film, the franchise gets hokier, but Ash the character, meh.
I think I dislike him more.
You do dislike him way more than I do. I think he's fine, but he's not great. But he's he's okay. He's fine. I'm indifferent. I think Chris Higgins angered me so much that I'm kind of indifferent to Ash at this point.
See, I feel the opposite. I think I feel the same way about Ash as you do about Chris, perhaps.
Fair enough.
We'll find out.
I guess we will.
Stay tuned.
Speaking of that, I think it's about time we go through our official ranking. So we're going to start from 19 to 1, and we're going to go in tandem. So in my 19th position, I have Kirsty Colton from Hellraiser.
Wow. Okay. I have Alex from Final Destination, which maybe your spread's not Ash, but it's Alex.
Yeah, he sucks.
Yeah, he's not great.
In my 18th position, I actually have Alex from Final Destination.
That's not good.
So just swap there. But anyways, what about you?
My 18th is Ash from Evil Dead, which probably is no surprise.
Yeah, fair enough. My 17th position is Lila Crane from Psycho.
Oh.
She's low.
Wow.
The film is impactful, but the character is not.
I find that shocking, because you know who my 17th is? Chris Higgins. Which I'm surprised for you is not in your bottom 3, given your strong dislike for this character.
Yeah, but
Chris is bad. It's bad.
Yeah, but the hockey mask, at least.
You think that's more iconic than Psycho?
Almost never started.
Okay. Well, I don't know where Chris is on your list. Let's see where this
in my 16th position is actually Chris Higgins.
Oh, okay.
From Friday the 13th, part 3.
Okay, I suppose. 16th, I have Kirsty Colton from Hellraiser.
Okay.
So.
We kind of have similar-ish.
Yeah. I think our like, if you broke it into groups of 3, I think our groups of 3 are probably going to be very similar, just mixed up a little bit.
Agreed. In my 15th position is actually Ash Williams from The Evil Dead.
15th for me is Alice Hardy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
From Friday.
OG.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh. She does not like Alice. Wow, okay, geez. Guys, what did Alice do to you? In my 14th position, I have Sally Hardesty from Texas Chainsaw.
Oh. In 14?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I have 14th. I have Lila Crane. So as much as I gave you grief a moment ago, although I will say that this got bumped up because I believe the impact on it from this film is quite high. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
I'm artsy.
whatever.
I love black and white.
It's a good film. I agree.
Well, you don't have to say it won the best. I believe this won Best Picture.
I'm going to look that up while you go on about
how wonderful Psycho is. I think the only reason it didn't rank higher is because actually Lila Crane is such a secondary, or not even secondary, like a tertiary character.
Nominations, no winners.
Oh, really? Interesting. Well, fine.
Okay, well, loser.
14th, Lila Crane for me.
All right. 13th for me is Tommy Jarvis from Friday the 13th, the final chapter.
Interesting. 13 for me is Ginny Field from Friday 2.
Wow, you really hate the Fridays. Okay. We get it.
Well, I haven't.
I'm joking.
I'm trying to think. No, I still got one left.
That's your third Friday character.
How many have you done?
I've only done 1, 2. 2?
I think so.
Yeah.
13.
You just hate Jason. I get it.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, they're not good. Let's be real.
I can't blame you.
Yeah, not great.
So who's your 13th?
Ginny Field.
Oh, right. It was Ginny.
Yeah.
Not your 13th. That was your...
That
was your 13th.
It was your 12th.
Yes. My 12th is actually... I forgot. Sorry. Alice Hardy from Friday the 13th.
That's funny.
Mm-hmm.
My 12th is Nancy Thompson from Nightmare on Elm Street.
Interesting. Yeah. Because my 11th is Nancy Thompson from Nightmare on Elm Street.
I think this is going to get dicey here. Okay, my 11th. Mm-hmm. You're going to be so mad. He's going to be mad about this. Sam Carpenter from Scream 5.
I'm actually not as mad as I thought I could be, but I think she should be a bit higher for you, but whatever.
Impact.
I think
for me personally, that's where it lost some points because it's so far in, and I don't necessarily know it was as impactful, but I'm also not a youth anymore, and so maybe I just have more of a...
That's right.
...a feeling for, like, I feel more strongly about the first.
Yeah. Grandma over here doesn't like the new kids.
I don't like the youths.
And my 10th position is Ginny Field from Friday the 13th, part 2. Okay. So our Friday characters aren't our top 5 at least.
No, because my 10th Is that where we're at?
Yeah.
My 10th is Tommy Jarvis from Friday the 4. So I think we've hit all the Friday characters.
The Fridays
now,
are done.
and they're all the highest ranking for. We both have a 10th place.
Yeah.
And that's the highest. They're different, but they're both Friday characters. So yeah.
Moving up to the top of the list, in 9th position is Maxine Minx from X.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my 9th is Sally Hardesty from Texas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good character.
Top half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. You don't really, she doesn't know what's happening in the film half the time until the end, but sure, whatever.
But that's not her fault. If she knew and she wasn't doing anything, that's a totally different story.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
In my 8th position is Andy Barclay from Child's Play.
Oh, we match.
Oh, wow.
This is the first time. So my 8th position is also Andy from Child's Play.
There we go.
Yeah.
My 7th position is Sam Carpenter from Scream 5.
Oh, okay. You have a few higher than me.
Just a bit higher, but I agree. She's not as woof.
No. My 7th is Maxine Minx from X.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I feel like maybe Maxine should swap with Sam in my list, but I made the choices that I've made, and I'll stick with them. In my 6th position is Chris Washington from Get Out.
Oh, we match again.
Oh, look at that.
My 6th is also Chris from Get Out.
Okay.
It's too funny.
5th is Gail Weathers from Scream.
Me too. I swear we did not plan this, folks. My 5th is Gail Weathers from Scream. Yeah. Okay. Too funny.
In my 4th position, I have Ellen Ripley from Alien.
Oh, okay. We do differ here. My 4th is Laurie Strode from Halloween. I know you love Halloween, and I love Laurie.
I know.
But she's 4th. That's top. That's like, she didn't quite make the podium.
Yeah.
But she's up there. She's one step away from the podium.
I'll give it. Winning the bronze for me in 3rd place is Jess Bradford from Black Christmas.
Oh, she gets 2 bronze medals because she's also mine. Yeah.
Good for you, Jess.
Yeah, good for you. 2 bronze
Two
medals.
bronze medals.
The same event. Good for you.
Fantastic. Winning my silver medal in 2nd position is Laurie Strode from Halloween.
Okay, so we just flipped our 2nd and 4th because my 2nd is Ellen Ripley from Alien. I'm partial to a strong female lead, and especially at this era, I think she's just phenomenal.
Fair enough.
I think, folks.
That means that in our first positions, both of us taking home the gold is Sydney Prescott from Scream.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Sydney.
Yeah, it's 2 gold medals.
That's 2 gold medals. You beat Jess Bradford.
That's right.
And you should be proud of yourself
for that. Flag bearer.
Yeah, there you go.
No, I mean, you can't say you can't say anything about Sydney, right? I mean,
you can try and hate on her. You can't hate on her.
I don't think so.
No.
And she's so iconic through. I mean, even in the first one, she's so iconic, which is what the film we're talking about. But she just carries herself through and gets more and more iconic, just like Gail. Yeah. But I think Sydney is the real deal.
I would agree. Well, there you have it. Those are our lists, and let us know down below if you extremely disagree with us or if you completely agree with us. Let me know your rankings down below in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having
me. It was a
me.
pleasure. And until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Don't forget to like, comment down below, and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.